Welcome to OnScreen English with Steve Marshall. Lesson 21 is on second conditional. You can use the second conditional to talk about an imaginary possibility. Let's look at the sentence. If I had more money, I'd buy a beautiful house. Is the time idea past, present, or future? The answer is present to future. And the concept, is it a real possibility? The answer, no, it's imaginary. This is because I don't have enough money, I'm just imagining. Here's the form for the second conditional. We'll use the same sentence. If I had more money, I'd buy a beautiful house. Here are the different parts of the sentence. If I had more money is the if clause, and I'd buy a beautiful house, the main clause. The sentence begins with if. Next is the subject, I, and then the verb had in past simple. In the main clause, I is the subject. Next we have would, apostrophe D, the short form, and buy is in the infinitive. And if you begin the sentence with the if clause, don't forget the comma. You can see the comma here after the word money. You can also say the sentence the other way round. I'd buy a beautiful house if I had more money. In this sentence, the main clause comes first and the if clause second. In this sentence, there's no comma. Let's look at the practice task for the second conditional. Complete the sentences below using the second conditional. Remember to use the past simple in the if clause and would plus infinitive in the main clause. The idea in the main clause should be an imaginary possibility. Here are the answers. Number 1. If I could travel in time, I would travel in the future. 2. I would study harder if I had more time. 3. If I were rich, I'd buy a Rolls-Royce. You could also say if I was rich, I'd buy a Rolls-Royce. Was is a little bit less formal than were. And sentence 4, if I lived in Hawaii, I'd go to the beach every day. Okay, I'm going to summarize the lesson now. You use a second conditional to describe imaginary possibilities. The time idea is between the present and the future. And the tenses. In the if clause, you should use the past simple. In the main clause, would plus infinitive. I'll show you this with the sentence, if I lived in Japan, I'd eat a lot of sushi. If I lived in Japan is the if clause with past simple, lived. And I'd eat a lot of sushi is the main clause with would plus infinitive, I would eat. There are some alternative forms you can use. For example, if I were or I was living in Japan, I'd eat a lot of sushi. In this sentence, the if clause uses the present continuous. Were is more formal, was less formal. Next one, if I lived in Japan, I could or might eat a lot of sushi. In this sentence, the main clause uses could or might, the modal auxiliary verbs. Next one, if I were or I was you, I'd take an umbrella. In this sentence, you're giving advice. And finally, I'd take an umbrella is the short form for giving advice. Thank you, that's all for now. If you'd like to see the next video in the series, OnScreen English, Lesson 22, Third Conditional, please click on the link.